Our next corporate presentation will be Snowline Gold. Snowline has some very exciting drill results over the last little while from their key flagship project, Rogue. And with us today and presenting will be Mr. Scott Berdahl, CEO of the company. Scott?
Do I press something to get the slides up? Okay. Well, I can start the talk anyway without visuals. Snowline Gold is a Yukon-based, Yukon-focused company in northwestern Canada. We are focused on greenfield gold, so discovery stage gold assets across the territory. The company comes out of more than 30 years of prospecting in the territory, started by my father. When I was a little kid, he would drag me out into the wilderness and we'd go and look for gold. Pretty strange thing to do, but over the years, we had some successes and we started to accumulate really high quality projects. And of course, we had a lot of misses too, but over a long period of time, you get to try a lot of ideas. And so over the relative doldrums of the past 10 years, we were unable to really advance these projects. There was no junior market to sell them into. And so we suddenly had a backlog of these very quality assets with a lot of good data pointing to really a gold district that just didn't exist or that hasn't been explored before. And so ultimately, the way forward was to launch these into a company. And so that company is now Snowline. We've launched in March of 2021, so we're just a year and a half old now. But I think our track record shows that backstory, it's more than just a fun backstory of prospectors in the Yukon. It actually has material impact in terms of our ability to produce discoveries quickly because we've done the legwork. We've concentrated what we have in terms of our projects. And essentially, on launch last year, we secured this district scale area in the northwestern Yukon. Here we go. I guess those were all rear-looking statements. I'll now switch to forward-looking statements. And so yeah, there's me in the bottom picture. There's my dad. Spent a long time exploring in the Yukon, and we rolled 7 projects out into Snowline. We recently acquired the Golden Ole project, so that's an 8th project, or you could call it 10 more projects, really. It was a large package that we acquired based on the success that we're having on our Valley target, which is on the Rogue project. So you can see in the eastern Yukon, that Einarson and Rogue area is really where we have focused most of our exploration so far. This is a shot of the discovery outcrop at our Valley target on the Rogue project. This is the edge of an intrusion. You can see the rocks in the creek there are basically like a granite, and behind that are sedimentary rocks that have been cooked by that granite. And those quartz veins cutting through are a reduced intrusion-related gold system. So similar to the Eagle Mine that you just saw with Victoria Gold, this is a big bulk tonnage target. But what's unusual about Valley is the density of those veins. And so where these systems are typically sub-gram, just big projects with good economics, or good metallurgy, good consistency, and so on that make it work, we're seeing grades that are 1 gram plus, 2 grams plus, and so that has us really excited. And also, just stepping back and looking at the district scale picture, what has us excited is that this is a district that was theoretical when we launched the company a year and a half ago. We now have more than a 250,000 hectares of land there, and we're walking up creeks and finding what we think might be tier 1 gold assets sticking out of the ground, just like this. And we made another drill discovery on another target, again, with mineralization just coming out of the ground, finding it on surface, finding things that people hadn't seen before.
Where was this taken?
That's Valley. That's right at the edge of Valley.
When was this photo taken?
The question, when was that photo taken? That was 2 months ago, September. Okay. Actually, that's probably August, based on the green leaves. But and so I guess your question as investors, your broader question is, is this a mine, or what does that look like? Like, is Snowline a company worth investing in? And So ultimately, to answer that question, I'm just going to quickly run you through Doug Casey's 9 Ps that you look for in a company. And I think that it goes beyond just the rocks. There are a lot of factors that go into building a mine or finding a mine. So the first is people, and I think the other reason that we've been able to sort of spring load into discovery is the team that we've put together. This group has gotten a lot done very quickly. It's a team that has a lot of experience, but is still very young and very hungry. And so our management team has done incredible things in the past year and a half. And as well, our board is diverse, multifaceted, diverse in terms of their backgrounds and what they bring to the table, and very engaged, very good board, lots of constructive discussions. And I'll just point out our chair, Craig Hart, actually wrote the book on reduced intrusion-related gold systems, which is what Eagle is, which is what our Valley target is. The projects, as I mentioned, we are focused on basically a new district, and within that you can see the Valley drill discovery. We've drilled 3 targets in this district now as a company. All 3 of them phase 1 drill programs on never before drilled targets. All 3 of them hit visible gold in these phase 1 programs. So that's, as far as I know, unheard of. As a prospector, I know it's very hard to find a new instance of visible gold, and so to hit 3 for 3 on drill programs has us very excited about the potential of this broader district. But I'll focus in now on Valley, which is what's really driving the story at present. And so I've made my own list of what makes a project worthwhile, and that's scale, grade, continuity, the actual mine type, is it going to work, and the metallurgy. Valley has scale. We've outlined through just looking at the vein densities. If you recall in that outcrop picture, it just comes down to how many of those quartz veins you see cutting through the granite in a given meter. And so we've mapped that out. And we've defined an area that's maybe 500 meters long, 300 or 400 meters wide. We've seen veins down to depths of over 700 meters. So we've done a lot of drilling there this season, but we're still just getting started. But that's a very large volume of mineralized rock. The grades, as I mentioned, are impressive and unprecedented for this kind of a deposit. Showing there is our hole 10, 319 meters at 2.5 grams per ton. The top 108 meters of that hole average 4.1 grams per ton, and that's not heavily influenced by outliers. It's basically just consistent mineralization. 72% of the samples in that top 108 meters were more than 2 grams per ton. The continuity, and I think this gets overlooked, but I guess going back to that statistic, 72% of that top 108 meters being more than 2 grams per ton. And if you look back at these holes 14 and holes 7, hole 10 is 160 plus meters away from these. Those 2 holes are 165 meters apart. We're seeing great continuity both within and between holes, and that's how you build ounces quickly. The geometry, one thing you'll note is that that 108 meters on the previous slide is right near surface. That starts from surface. We have great grades right at the start. At Arequipa, the Pierina discovery, there was a zone called Payback Hill because it had great grades right near surface, very low strip ratio. We basically have Payback Valley with our best grades right near surface. And then the geometry of it is such in a big, broad, flat valley bottom that we should be able to access a lot of the drill discovery that we've made so far with a fairly conservative pit design and a very low strip ratio. And then beyond that, the 2 gram plus opens the door to underground development. So if there are deep parts of this system, and often these systems do go very deep, that is potentially on the table as well, which might not add to the NPV up front, but it adds to the attractiveness of the target. The metallurgy, we have just brought on a consultant to do proper metallurgical work. We've yet to start, but again, looking over the fence at other systems of this type, generally very well behaved, good recovery from gravity, good recovery from leaching. We have grades enough to potentially put together some circuits or carbon in situ leach, that kind of a thing. Looking at Fort Knox in Alaska, for example, they're mining right now at a 0.3 gram per ton grade with a 0.1 gram per ton cutoff in a gold-only system. So that shows how the metallurgy just allows these to work. And we haven't seen anything that makes us think that ours will be any different, but of course we're launching to that metallurgy soon so that we'll know. Paper, we have a tight share structure, relatively speaking. We have 130 million shares out, 150 fully diluted, and a lot of that is in strong hands, strong supporters of the company who have been active in the company, including myself and my family company, some of our supporters, Keith Newmeyer, Crescat Capital, and others who have put a lot of resources into the company and come up again and again and have not sold a share. So yeah, we have a very nice structure going forward. So jumping ahead, the promotion, financing, and politics. I guess Doug got creative with the fitting financing into there, but it works. Promotion, which is, I guess, a double-edged sword and a bit of a dirty word in the industry, but ultimately, we know that we have to tell our story, but we know that there's a line there, and we really try to focus on earned attention. So if you see something written about Snowline, you know that that person is just saying what they think. And you know, we try to get ourselves out there. We brought, instead of hiring firms, we've hired Stephanie Hansen, who has done a great job of managing our social media, getting me out there, dragging me to these conferences, getting me up here to talk to all of you. And so, you know, we're working to get our story out there in a responsible way, but an effective way, and that's working. And we've picked up a preliminary coverage from several analysts, including Michael Gray, Brock Coulter-John, and Brendan Gaspar. So the message is starting to take hold. Our financing, we're well financed with $24 million in the treasury at the moment. We have about $20 million worth of warrants in the money, and a lot of those are in those strong hands that I mentioned earlier. So while often people are worried about warrant overhangs, and certainly that could be a factor here, we really don't think that it is. Politics, we're in the Yukon Territory, a Tier 1 jurisdiction, northwestern Canada. Recently ranked number 9 globally as far as mining jurisdictions go by the Fraser Institute. We're in the traditional territory of the Nacho-Naik-Dun First Nation, who have a long history with mining, notably Eagle, the Victoria Gold, the presentation we just saw. They're also in the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun Traditional Territory, as is Hecla's recent acquisition of Alexco. So there are 2 operating mines in the territory now, and others, well, in the broader Yukon Territory, we have about 2 of the 3 are in that traditional territory, and then others are progressing through permitting in the Yukon. So it's a place where things can happen. And finally, push, the pitfalls, and the price. Push being, you know, why invest in Snowline now? What's the near-term upside? And the near-term upside, I think, is substantial in that we drilled over 11,000 meters at our valley target this year. We've only received assays on about 25% of that, and we drilled another target as well, which we haven't received any assays. So we're still waiting on 80% of our assays from this season. And the assays that we do have paint a very compelling picture, as I spoke of earlier, with the grades that we're seeing. So you can see all those sticks on that area are holes that we're still waiting for. And again, this zone, when we look at the visual results, all those little stars are visible gold in drill core. And so we're seeing holes with literally, well, dozens or even 100 or more instances of visible gold within a given hole. And so that bodes very well, especially when we see now in the results that we do have back how that translates into actual results. And so this is hanging together in a very exciting way. I mentioned we drilled another target, Gracie to the east. We drilled 5 holes there. We've hit visible gold in 4 out of the 5. We haven't found the intrusion. We're targeting a similar system to Valley, but it doesn't daylight like Valley does. It's still buried, which is actually appealing in a lot of ways because the tops of these systems are often the most fertile. And so Gracie, we have an intact prize there, potentially, if we can find it, but seeing visible gold in the Hornfels, in the altered rocks right around the intrusion is a very good start. Potential pitfalls, of course, our location is, we're finding these things sticking out of the ground because we went to an area that others have not been to before. And so it's remote, but it's not wildly inaccessible. We have a winter trail that goes to within 30 kilometers of the valley zone, and that connects to a government-maintained road that has upgrades coming to it. Permitting, of course, advanced stage permitting, we've already actually started on environmental baseline work to compress that timeline and to ensure that this project can actually go ahead. And finally, the price referring not to the stock, but to the commodity in general. And this is really proving to be, based on the continuity, based on the scale that we're seeing, and based on the grades we're seeing, it looks like the type of deposit that doesn't really depend so much on the price of gold. So we're not, crossing our fingers and And going on about $4,000 gold, this is something that could conceivably work at $1,200 gold. Okay. Oh yeah, 9 seconds left.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
We have one last question, quick.
Can
Please.
you elaborate on the valuation? You're at 400 million Canadian now. We just had John presenting Victoria Gold, their producer. They're 480 million.
I think you just have to look at the scale potential and look at the grades that we have. And, we think that we're onto something pretty special where, I think Victoria Gold has done an incredible thing and is doing a great proof of concept. But the average grade of that system is 0.65. We don't know what our average grade is yet, but we're hitting huge intervals of 2 grams plus. So I think when it comes down to value per ton of ore removed and also overall size of the system, we're in a very competitive place.
Thank you.
One question, when are you going to promote to the other stock exchange? You're now on the Canadian stock exchange?
That's right, we're on the CSC. We're always reevaluating. Right now it's serving our purposes, but I recognize that we may be able to access a broader audience with a bump to the TSX, so that's something that we're constantly reviewing.